Stephenie Meyer's Twilight Saga is good. I'm serious, it's good. It's a great attempt at a gothic teen romance. It's original because Meyer did zero lore research before writing it.
It's impossible.
I know that it's impossible, but...
Is this even possible?
And quite frankly, the writing isn't as bad as everyone says it is.
Aro started to laugh. Ha ha ha, he chuckled. Okay, I said as bad. I didn't say it was Shakespearean. At the heart of the plot, mixed in with vampiric folklore and doomed lovers, rests a poignant theme: change. And not just change, but the fear one gets when faced with the lack of it. Vampires are immortal, frozen at whatever age they're bitten. They're unchanging. And it is this fixedness which startles not only us, the reader, but the characters as well. Rosalie Hale laments her immutable existence. Edward believes he is damned. Humanity cannot fathom the idea of staying the same forever. It goes against our core instincts. In her own way, this fear of staying the same also drives Bella Swan. She wants to be made new in vampirism. She wants to change into what she perceives is a better version of herself. The message of the series is clear. Aging and not changing, not growing into something else, someone wiser, someone better, is innately terrifying. But if that's the case, why are we so obsessed with staving off change for as long as we can in the most bizarre ways possible?
Aging is not real.
Let's go over how we can fix it.
This man is injecting the blood of his teenage son into himself in order to reverse aging.
I'm 30 years old, but I really haven't aged since I was about 21, 22, something like that.
Only objective we have is don't die.
Just drives me crazy, because if I were a man, I would be considered scientific and heroic, but as a woman, everything that I'm doing is considered anti-feminist, and I can't.
Speaking of change, odds are if you're a fan of my art, you're also probably a serial listener. You enjoy long video essays here on YouTube, TV shows, music, whatever it is. I bet your ears are tired, girl. Especially if you don't have comfortable ear equipment. That's why I'm happy to introduce the sponsor of today's video, Raycon. Raycon has made a name for themselves in premium audio by offering premium tech at affordable prices. And they have tons of options to choose from. They have everyday earbuds, everyday headphones. They even have like a new line of Raycon Home and Raycon Power Tech. Am I too loud for you? Why are you twitching your ear? My favorite has been the everyday earbuds. My last pair of headphones were like over the ear and they didn't fit me right. After hours of editing or listening to music, I take them off and realize, ow, ow, ow. My ears hurt. But Raycon's everyday earbuds feel great inside my ear hole. No, I shouldn't say that. You know that awful feeling when you're doing something that requires both hands? Like washing the dishes? And you can slowly feel your earbuds slipping out? It's evil, but my Raycon everyday earbuds fit me great. They came with multiple ear tip options, which I can switch out and test to find the best fit for me. Not only does the right fit make these excel at noise isolation, but it makes them feel like a custom luxury, even though they're affordable. Speaking of, Raycon has a Black Friday promotion across their entire site. Everything is 20% off with fitness earbuds being 25% off, Tech Kids Impact earbuds and the Impact speaker being 30% off, and other select items being 50% off. If any of this interests you, make sure to get an early start on holiday sales by shopping Raycon's early Black Friday sale today. Go to buyraycon.com/Shakespeare to get 20 to 50% off site-wide. Keep in mind that clicking my link and ordering Raycons also supports me and my channel. Thank you to Raycon for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to youth is the idol of the anti-aging community and the savior employed against wrinkles and sagging jowls. Youth is an adjective and a verb, especially on TikTok, where influencers of all ages eagerly show their immortality routine. Look at me, they say. I am 26 and I don't have a wrinkle in sight. That's because I got Botox at the age of 19 as a preventative measure, and now I'll never ever look old, ever. Especially not at 26, the universal age of looking old, obviously. Is that a fucking wrinkle? Skincare, sunscreen, retinol, collagen, pills, healthy living. Some recommend therapy and a lack of stress too. Satin bonnets and mouth tape, weird contraptions that I don't really understand the point of, and lots of anti-wrinkle straws. This baby needs filler! The truth is, I don't have an issue with these routines. Some of them are a little more extreme than others, some of them are gratuitous, but some of them are good for you. For instance, it's important to wear sunscreen. It's important to take care of your skin. It's important to incorporate vegetables and fruit into your diet if you're able, and to get therapy if you can. My issue is with the framing of these routines, how they've crawled quite insidiously into the unhinging mouth of self-care and wellness, and how they've become indicators of morality. You might have noticed how skinniness is seen as an emblem of healthy living. The first impression we get from looking at a skinny person, specifically as people conditioned in a fat-phobic society, is that they take good care of themselves. They have discipline, they eat well, and they look good. Never mind the fact that weight doesn't correlate with health, and health is not readily apparent from a first impression, but fat phobia and the systems that power that be make it so that we believe it anyway. The same is happening with aging and skincare. In 1972, Susan Sontag argued that growing older is mainly an ordeal of the imagination, a moral disease, a social pathology. We've grown to believe, or perhaps we're strengthening an age-old belief, that showing signs of aging is a choice. If you get a wrinkle, if your hair gets gray, if you're unable to maintain the same physique that you had at 19, you've made the conscious choice to let yourself go. And if these things are choices, then failing to do them automatically casts a moral judgment upon you. You chose to do something wrong. You are the problem. As Tony Castellani argues, people equate health with goodness, assume that health is immediately apparent, and believe that people can control this facet of their lives. Therefore, to appear unhealthy is to have failed and to deserve one's fate. One ought to have changed one's lifestyle or diet. Further, if health is both apparent and under one's control, then physical signs of aging not only enable categorization, but promote differential treatment. Old age is a disease, the symptoms of which are sagging, wrinkling, and graying, all of which are symbols of a lack of control, which is unacceptable in contemporary society. You can argue with someone else in the comments, not with me, that the goal of the anti-aging community is not solely cosmetic. People do it to strengthen and promote the good of their skin barrier. It's not their fault that avoiding fine lines and wrinkles are merely a happy, joyous coincidence. Wrong. Bubonic plague. If health is the goal, then why is so much emphasis placed on appearances? We already established that the two share no correlation. And why, when given the chance to actually discuss the health of these procedures, do we skip over it to focus on visuals? Do you know the amount of TikToks I've seen saying to drink water because it makes your pores look good? To stop smoking, not because it harms your lungs and throat, but because smoking ages you. When people discuss the trend of buccal fat removal led by celebrities, they don't mention how, frankly, dystopian it is to permanently remove the fat pads from your cheeks to follow a beauty trend, and how damaging that can be not only to young, impressionable people, but to everyone affected by feminine beauty standards. No, they want to focus on how it ages you, because that's the scary part. Out of the 17 initial TikToks I saved for soundbite purposes, not even a fraction of all that I watched. None of them mention anti-aging in the sense of maintaining internal health, like that of their heart or joints. Well, this guy kind of does, but he also injects the blood of his child into himself to maintain his youth. So, I don't want to talk about him because he scares me.
The hashtag anti-aging has over 7 billion views. Most of the videos are made by young women between the ages of 20 and 35, or if those women aren't the focal point, they also include the routines of their parents or grandparents, age 50 to 75. The point of a lot of these videos is looking good for one's age, or preventing visible signs of aging, like smile lines or forehead wrinkles. If someone is to age at all, and they certainly shouldn't in these communities, they should do so successfully and with steadfast curation.
As Susan Sontag said, society allows no place in our imagination for a beautiful old woman who looks like an old woman. In a society where palatable beauty is God, people become convinced that aging is something to be ashamed of, even to the point of starting elaborate and potentially damaging anti-aging routines at just 14 years old.
Here's some things that I do to slow down the aging process as a 14-year-old. I started doing most of these things at 12. Number 1, I take 2 apple cider vinegar pills. I do this twice a day. Number 2, I use a retinol twice a day. And one of my favorite tips is I get my body lotion and put a little bit in that and then apply to my body as usual. It's actually so good for you.
I love you, random TikTok creator. You are very young and this is not your fault, but this TikTok makes me want to kill myself. A lot of people in this creator's comment section have pointed out that extreme use of retinol early on, especially as a 12 or 14-year-old, could potentially damage the skin barrier. There are also people making fun of her. What the fuck is wrong with you people? For reference, depending on the potency of the retinol, your skin sensitivity, and what kind of retinol you're applying, it's typical to gradually scale up retinol in your routine. You may start applying it every other week to every few days, eventually working your way up to applying it once a day, if that. Again, it depends on a lot of factors. I'm not saying this as a dermatologist, by the way, but as a YouTuber with an English degree. Take that as you will.
It's not just this TikToker. Daisy Schofield argues that anti-aging skincare is becoming a defining trend among younger generations, with teenagers and young adults spending more money on products than any other generation. Spoiled Child is such a brand that maintains a captivated Gen Z audience. Their website boasts such claims as "age is an old idea" and "control your age, stay immature." When you click onto their wellness section, you're greeted with a coy "when aging calls, don't pick up." These wellness items consist of collagen, of course, shine activator for your hair, damage reverser, anti-aging serums, and obviously stuff.
On the surface, none of this has anything to do with wellness in the way we understand the word. It just has to do with fighting wrinkles and buying stuff, which the latter I love. The former I'm confused by. Wrinkles are natural, inevitable. They're an inescapable byproduct of having skin. Equating it to health is dangerous, and yet wholly intentional. The language of care is embedded in a lot of these products, even as the products are not about care at all, but about control and physical manipulation of the body to a very strict standard of appearance, notes Jessica. With teen girls now reporting record levels of sadness, it's perhaps unsurprising that so many are turning toward products which offer a vague promise of improved well-being. Obviously, the fear of aging in our society doesn't start with nor end with TikTok. And it's not enough to simply criticize people who take part in anti-aging remedies without also critiquing why they hold this fear. The contempt of old age and the fear that propels us to avoid it has existed for a millennia. Seneca, an ancient Rome philosopher, called old age a disease. At the end of the Stone Age, old people were considered incapable of fruitfully contributing to their community, and as such, were often left behind to die. Alongside other demographics considered undesirable by Germany, that being Jewish people, Romani people, people with disabilities, Black people, queer people, and etc. The sick and elderly were also systematically murdered. During slavery, enslaved people who were considered disabled were often subject to violence or would be sold off to doctors, where they would be experimented upon. And to note, I say considered disabled because disability for enslaved people was defined as simply not being able to perform labor. This applied to blind people, old people, and even infertile people. Especially topical right now, alongside the conversation of Palestinian genocide, is a conversation of war, otherwise armed conflict, and the effect these two things have, not only on every age group, but especially old people. Human Rights Watch declares that old people are at a heightened risk of abuse during wars and armed conflicts, and this article has some pretty depressing yet eye-opening accounts, ranging from Sudan to Myanmar. This contempt with oldness, the idea that old people are a liability, a disease, a burden upon the young and the healthy, is intertwined with numerous discriminatory systems: imperialism, ableism, capitalism, and certainly.
Okay, boomer is ageist.
One strange morning, Gregor Samsa wakes up to find himself transformed into a beetle. Not only is he unable to go to work, which everyone hates, but his terrified family begins neglecting him and eventually resenting the perceived burden of his existence. In college, I argued that the metamorphosis was an allegory for ableism. Gregor wakes up in a new condition. He's unable to work and is vilified for it. His family even disables him further in their frustration at his new bodily state. Gregor eventually dies from the insidious nature of ableism, and his family is relieved to have him gone. Interestingly enough, the last few lines point to another theme. Gregor's younger sister, his mother, and his father are on a train heading to some fuck-ass destination after his death.
It struck both Mr. and Mrs. Samsa almost at the same moment, as they become aware of their daughter's increasing vivacity, that in spite of all the sorrow of recent times, which had made her cheeks pale, she had bloomed into a pretty girl with a good figure. And it was like a confirmation of their new dreams and excellent intentions that at the end of their journey, their daughter sprang to her feet and stretched her young body.
Where Gregor was perhaps disabled or aging and in need of assistance, his sister is young, vivacious, and emblematic of the future. His sister is seen as more valuable than Gregor, precisely because she is seen as the opposite of him. Able-bodied, young, and informed by the first two. Pretty. How peculiar.
Andrew W. Ockenbaum defines ageism as a systematic stereotyping of and discrimination against people because they are old, just as racism and sexism accomplish this with skin color and gender.
Ageism is a word rarely uttered in the conversation of how batshit the anti-aging industry is. But I think it's worth exploring. Every comment, every video, every post on social media is rounded out with the question, why are 14-year-olds doing anti-aging skincare? Why can't we just stop with this reverse aging nonsense? Because society hates old people, Brenda, and consider them diseased. Among other reasons, I guess. Age is a social location, Kalistani argues, one that is similar to race or gender. Ageism strips old people of their autonomy, wherein they're given less space to make decisions about their lives or bodies. It also strips them of status, money, and independence, wherein the loss of the first two typically begets the third, leading to old people depending on state or family to keep them afloat. In terms of TikTok skincare, ageism also manifests cosmetically with the fear of wrinkles and an aversion to looking old. It's easy to think that old people wield unnatural power, especially right now in our current political climate. The president is always edging a casket. Our representatives rarely reflect the demographics they're serving, and there's been a generational war for just about as long as the earth has turned. Young people believe that old people are unfair, puritanical demons who ruined the economy and the planet, and now they're ruining everyone's human rights. And trust me, I get it. I fall into this line of thinking too. In fact, the reason I drafted this video, I've been making a lot of personal videos lately, is because I wanted to argue how conservative and closed-minded older people grow up into being, and how that is an aspect of aging that we should be scared about. Then I started getting educated on discrimination, and it really blew my high.
No.
Yeah, it was gnarly.
Okay, well
It's
that's...
like 3 years ago.
I don't like that.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Palestani argues that dissatisfaction with aging, especially reflected in bodies, is most common around white middle-class women. And a basic search through the anti-aging tag on TikTok reflects this. I'm not saying people of color don't care about aging or don't participate in these communities, but I do think that aging is treated like the privilege and blessing that it is amongst communities of color. Aging might also be less emphasized in communities of color because of the age-old idea that Black doesn't crack and Asian don't raisin, which pushes the narrative that people of color simply don't age. Believe it or not, this is also not helpful rhetoric. I see so many posts about Gabrielle Union or Monique or Queen Latifah and how they've all aged well or look good for their age. Not only is it a backhanded compliment because it only implies that they're valuable because they look good for their age, but it also does less for aging anxieties than one might think. Because when we inevitably do start aging, regardless of race, people will once again be accused of moral failure.
Well, you just didn't try staying young hard enough. You didn't treat your skin with the love it deserved.
And I think it's ironic that we can understand that you're so pretty for a Black girl is harmful, but you look so good for your age isn't. When the old age filter went viral on TikTok recently, I noticed a lot of people, not just people of color, reacting in horror at how they looked, especially the celebrity influencers. The very same ones who acknowledged on national television how important their platforms are and how they have the power to negatively or positively influence young people. Yeah.
All of us just need to have a bigger conversation about the beauty standards that we're setting.
I don't like it at all. No.
I will admit, I was a bit shocked to see my result, I'm not gonna hold you. It's not uncommon for me as a feminine presenting person and a person read as a woman to feel imprisoned by beauty. Not beauty that I define for myself, mind you, but beauty inscribed by other more powerful structures. Even though I'm well versed in why these standards are impossible, even though I actually quite resent them, sometimes I still look in the mirror and wonder, am I doing enough? Am I boring, unfeminine, weird, or strange? Would people like me more if I looked like this, if I held my body like this, if I was prettier?
Countless articles, journals, videos, and more have explained ageism under the male gaze, and how women and otherwise feminine presenting people like me are faced with a double standard of aging, as described by Susan Sontag.
I can summarize this double standard effortlessly with one Hollywood couple, Keanu Reeves and Alexandra Grant. Keanu Reeves is 9 years older than Alexandra, with both of them being in their 50s. But let an Instagram comment section tell it, she is a cradle-robbing, disgusting being who tarnishes the charming and fine age whining image of Keanu because people on Instagram can't be normal. Alexandra clearly looks like a middle-aged woman. That's not an insult. She is breathtakingly beautiful, but the treatment that Alexandra faces online and in tabloids is typical of an ageist and misogynistic culture.
A woman's character is thought to be innate, static, she argues, not the product of her experience, her years, her actions. A woman's face is prized so far as it remains unchanged by or conceals the traces of her emotions, her physical risk-taking. Ideally, it is supposed to be a mask, immutable, unmarked.
In other words, to be marked as feminine, one must dedicate their lives to an anti-aging regime that is focused on appearance, facial and bodily, but mainly the former. Men, on the other hand, are allowed to change, even encouraged to do so, at least to middle age. They are expected to target their body and performance in their anti-aging regimen. They have to play hard and stay hard. No, they have to play hard and stay hard to be considered not old, which translates cleanly in our society as not useless. It's true that under the youth gaze, regardless of our gender or lack thereof, we all suffer. Ageism is an interesting form of discrimination because it's one that we'll all face, God willing. Older women, especially beyond middle age, not only disappear from sexual desirability, but also, and some would argue more importantly, they disappear from care and attention entirely. By their families, by their governments, and even by themselves. You could argue that the anti-aging regimens or the idea of reverse aging can combat the harsh effects of ageism. In fact, it might even be why so many young people are participating within these communities. They're trying to protect themselves from discrimination. But you'd be wrong. Bubonic plague. As Kalistani argues, the anti-aging industry doesn't combat ageism. Why did I say so hard? Instead, it reflects and reshapes ageism, reinforcing the belief that old age is repugnant and promising relief to those who can pay enough. Furthermore, rather than countering ageism itself, this movement toward prolonging middle age, abetted by the anti-aging industry, simply forestalls the point at which individuals' bodies become marked as old, and hence deserving the exclusion. The goal of these anti-aging regimens is not to thwart or otherwise mock ageism. It's to stall oneself right at the precipice of so-called ugliness. It's to equate old age with something repugnant, something that one can and should avoid. It's to reinvent ageism. I think the conversation is getting strained. We're at a breaking point. We have no choice but to talk about the ethical standpoint of anti-aging. After all, beauty moralism is at the center of every fucking conversation we have about goddamn people and their goddamn bodily ornaments. But maybe it matters. When I use beauty and moralism in conjunction with each other, I'm not referring to anything philosophized by Kant. I can't understand anything he was saying because I was an English major with a minor in pretty words, and philosophy gives me eczema. While Kant says that the concept or principle of judgment which mediates the transition between nature and freedom is that of the purposiveness of nature, which could simply be understood as referring to nature's scientific comprehensibility, he also associates judgment in this context with a feeling of pleasure and displeasure, making clear that it is not only judgment in the context of empirical scientific inquiry, but also aesthetic judgment, which plays this bridging role. Fucking pardon? No, when I talk about beauty moralism, I'm talking about the inevitable conversation that comes up when we discuss the anti-aging industry or cosmetic surgery or even makeup and clothing. Is it moral to like any of this stuff? Is it moral to post TikToks recommending serums and special straws and sleep positions just to avoid wrinkles? Is it feminist? Or is it corrupted by consumerism and internalized misogyny? Well, in her 1972 article, The Double Standard of Aging, Susan Sontag presents an interesting viewpoint. Indeed, a woman who is not narcissistic is considered unfeminine, And a woman who spends literally most of her time caring for and making purchases to flatter her physical appearance is not regarded in society as what she is, a kind of moral idiot. Okay, Susan from the top row. It's tempting to ask, what does beauty have to do with morals? But in all truth, beauty has been transitioning from aesthetic value to ethicality for some time now. As Heather Widdows argues, in the introduction to her book, because I didn't read the whole thing yet, implied moral judgments are ubiquitous in the beauty context. Think of the endless supply of, take care of yourself, you deserve to look your best, queen. Make sure you look good at 87 like my grandma does. Don't let go of yourself. These phrases, which are lobbed at people starting at a young age, imply an inherent requirement to adhere to dominant beauty standards. Beauty has become a moral bar in the sense that excelling at it makes you appear more disciplined, you reap rewards for achieving it, you're considered morally superior. But if you fail at beauty, you're viewed as deserving of your subsequent mistreatment. Many would argue that participating in the beauty system then, even while acknowledging the conditioning that brainwashes people into doing so for the most part, only reinforces discrimination. Therefore, people argue that the beauty industry and those that participate within it are, as Sontag called them, moral idiots. What I've noticed recently is how this conversation is being flipped on social media. People who don't participate in beauty rituals, who are called morally compromised by society, are now starting to point out the moral bankruptcy of those that do participate in beauty rituals. This line of thinking is that by divesting from oppressive beauty standards, people are by default virtuous. By engaging with them, despite how or why, people are immoral. The entire thing, at least in my opinion, is awfully black and white. On one hand, people argue that people, especially women, should be able to do whatever they want with their bodies. If they want to participate in reverse aging or cosmetic or fillers or cosmetic surgery, they should be able to. On the other hand, people argue that all of it contributes to the larger picture of misogyny. And somehow, I find myself stuck firmly in the middle of these two arguments. I don't think anti-aging should be normalized, especially in such an extreme manner as shown on TikTok. But I also wonder, is it any of my business what Sally down the street is doing with her skin? I think firmly condemning either side or pretending that either option come from strict personal choice is fallacious. As individuals, we do not choose our beauty ideals. Arguably, we choose the extent to which we conform to them, but the extent to which we can do this is limited by the dominance of the ideal. As the beauty ideal becomes more dominant, the ethical pressure to conform increases. Not conforming is not an option, and previously extreme procedures, however defined, are normalized, and more practices are required to meet minimal standards of normal. To understand the beauty ideal, we need to recognize its ethical function and dominance. It cannot be dismissed as wholly harmful or as wholly benign, and it is too important to be left for individuals alone to choose. In conclusion, this is a conversation that contains multitudes. Respectfully, it's okay to look your age. But I also understand what drives you to run away from it. The truth remains that you will get a wrinkle and you will die, and all of us will die, and it will be okay because we will not die from wrinkles, we will die from whatever kills us, internally or externally, but not fucking wrinkles. We also can't simply say, be okay with aging, stop caring what you look like. Even if everyone woke up tomorrow and decided to cherish aging, even if we viewed old age as the privilege it is, the beauty it is, there would still be a system that profits and thrives on ageism and misogyny. These are the roots of the anti-aging industry. Simply smiling and telling one to like one's smile lines does nothing to get at the root. Likewise, think of it like this. The answer to racism is not to stop being black or to hate being black or even being exceptionally black, as respectability politics will have you believe. Wrong, bubonic plague. The solution is to become aware of, challenge, and eventually dissolve the systems of racism that make being Black difficult, for lack of a better word. I don't think it's difficult, but racism is a thing. We must be nuanced. But there is something we can do, should do, really. I like to recontextualize aging outside of Western anxieties. Not only does our excessive time on the internet make us forget what faces should and do look like in reality, but we also develop a habit of shrinking our life view to the smallest possible issue and forget the bigger picture. The truth is, we should be less afraid of wrinkles. We should be made more aware of the discrimination aimed at old people. We should target discrimination in healthcare and social security and politics. We should ensure the safety and liberation of old people. And in our current climate and historical climate, where we are witnessing bodies being pulled from the rubble in Palestine, where we are witnessing millions of people murdered and subjugated in the Congo, where we are witnessing dehumanizing conditions in Sudan and Yemen, where we have learned about and continue to ignore the indigenous plights of those in Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Mexico, and North America, we should not be afraid of aging. Because aging is a privilege. Millions of those before us never got to worry about wrinkles. They never had enough time to develop laugh lines. They never lived fully in the ways we are avoiding out of fear. The only hope they had was to get as far as they did to pass the baton onto the next person, so that someday, somewhere, maybe in a future that we all won't be alive to witness, but hopefully will happen regardless, someone somewhere on a porch or in the rain can see their reflection and be content with what they see. Because all of those fine lines, those crow's feet, that sagging skin, that means they survived. That is a sign of life. And this is less about guilt tripping or invalidating people's insecurities and more about reframing the narrative of aging to something that hopefully inspires you. Either way, change is coming. Will your sleep routine save you when the dirt comes? Or will the veil be lifted? You tell me. Goodbye. Did you see that spit, or was it just me? Okay, I have to stop talking with my hands so much because these bitches are... Wrong. Bubonic plague.